Olivia had raised Ethan for 14 years, loving him like her own child. But during the adoption hearing, when everyone expected it to be the happiest moment, Ethan stood up and uttered a sentence that shocked the entire courtroom. "I can't let her adopt me because I know the truth." An old letter was placed on the table, revealing a terrifying secret about the death of his mother years ago. Is Olivia really guilty? Or is there an even darker truth being hidden? Olivia walked into the courtroom with a tumult of emotions, both nervous and hopeful. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day she would officially become Ethan's legal mother. He was the boy she had loved and cared for over the past 14 years. From the moment she found the 6-year-old trembling boy standing alone in the rain that fateful night, Olivia knew her life would never be the same. She had watched Ethan grow up, enduring his early years with a vague fear of a past he couldn't fully understand, comforting him in her arms whenever nightmares suddenly pulled him back into painful memories of his mother's death. She had promised herself that one day, she would no longer have to fear anything that could separate them, and today, that day had finally come. The large, solemn courtroom, with its long rows of wooden chairs and soft yellow light casting over the glossy marble floor, seemed to hum with the rustle of paperwork and the quiet voices of lawyers and court clerks. Yet for Olivia, all those sounds seemed distant and faint. The only thing that mattered at that moment was Ethan, the son she had devoted her entire youth to loving. She glanced at him, hoping to catch a glimpse of excitement, nervousness, or at least a spark of joy in his eyes. But Ethan simply sat there, still and silent, his gaze fixed forward, his face devoid of any emotion. A vague sense of unease crept into Olivia's heart, but she quickly dismissed it. The boy had been through so much loss. Maybe he was just trying to appear strong. After all, today was an important turning point in their lives. She smiled gently, squeezing her hands to reassure herself. In just a few moments, when the judge announced the final decision, she would finally be able to call Ethan her son, with no barriers left between them. She had imagined that moment hundreds of times, picturing them leaving the courtroom as a real family, with no obstacles ahead. Little did Olivia know, in just a few minutes, everything she believed in, every happiness she had hoped for, would shatter in the blink of an eye. The courtroom was enveloped in a tense silence. Olivia gripped the armrests of her chair, trying to steady herself as the judge's gaze settled on Ethan's face. His deep voice broke the stillness, each word falling into the space like hammer strikes to her heart. "Do you agree to let Olivia officially adopt you?" All sounds in the room seemed to vanish. No one moved, no one dared speak. 1 second, 2 seconds, then 3. Each moment stretched, and the air grew heavy, suffocating. Olivia swallowed hard, staring at Ethan, waiting for the answer she believed would bring her the greatest happiness of her life. But instead of nodding, instead of offering a smile of joy, Ethan slowly stood up. He didn't rush, didn't seem flustered, but exuded an unsettling calm. His eyes grew colder, like a moonless night. Olivia felt her chest tighten. A terrible premonition crept into her heart, though she couldn't explain why. Then Ethan opened his mouth. His voice wasn't loud, but each word struck the stillness of the room like a sharp knife. "I won't let her adopt me." The room erupted in shock. Olivia froze, the words like a storm tearing through her, sweeping away all the joy, all the hope she had felt. She opened her mouth to say something, but before she could respond, Ethan continued, his gaze never leaving hers. "Because I know the truth." The courtroom fell silent once more. A tremor rippled through the room, like an invisible earthquake spreading outward. Whispers began to rise from every corner. Some exchanged confused glances, while others covered their mouths in shock. The judge furrowed his brows, and Olivia's lawyer momentarily halted, his eyes wide with disbelief. But the only one who couldn't react was Olivia. Her blood seemed to freeze. Each breath came harder than the last. She stared at Ethan, searching for a sign that this was all a joke, a misunderstanding. But no, his face was completely serious, his voice unwavering. Olivia couldn't understand what was happening. What truth was Ethan referring to? Why was he rejecting her right here, right now, at the moment that was supposed to be their happiest? She wanted to speak, to ask him one simple yet agonizing question. Why? But her throat felt constricted, and before she could say anything, Ethan reached into his coat pocket, pulled something out, and placed it on the table in front of the judge. What was it? And what was the truth Ethan was talking about? Ethan slowly reached into his coat pocket, pulling out an old, weathered envelope. The paper inside had yellowed with age, its edges frayed, evidence of its long existence. The room seemed to freeze in that instant, every eye in the courtroom fixed on him. The judge, the lawyers, even the spectators, they all leaned in, waiting for what Ethan would reveal. Olivia, on the other hand, felt her heartbeat slow, each thud in her chest growing heavier, as if a looming dread was beginning to consume her from within. With a steady hand, Ethan placed the letter on the table, nudging it gently toward the judge. His face remained unreadable, yet there was a strange tension in the air as he spoke, his voice almost detached. "This is the letter my birth mother left before she passed." The words hung in the air like an unspoken prophecy. A wave of silence swept through the courtroom, deeper than before. Olivia couldn't even hear her own breath. The world around her seemed to blur, and for the first time, she felt utterly frozen. The judge picked up the letter with deliberate slowness, his fingers trembling slightly as he unfolded it. He read aloud the single sentence scrolled on the page, a simple yet devastating truth that shattered the fragile peace in the room. "If you are reading this, be careful of Olivia." The air in the courtroom turned icy, as if the very walls themselves had absorbed the coldness of the words. A collective gasp filled the room, followed by the sound of frantic whispers echoing like the rustle of leaves in a storm. Some spectators instinctively covered their mouths, their faces frozen in shock, while others exchanged confused and fearful glances. But Olivia was no longer able to comprehend anything. She sat motionless, her body cold, as though the blood had drained from her limbs. Those words, they cut through her like 1,000 sharp blades, each syllable a reminder of a reality she had never once imagined. Her mouth opened as if to deny it, to scream that this was a misunderstanding, that the letter was wrong, but no sound emerged. The silence suffocated her. She tried to look at Ethan, to find any sign of jest, any indication that this was some cruel prank. But his face remained hard, cold, and resolute. His eyes met hers with an intensity that pierced her very soul. He wasn't angry. He wasn't accusing. He was simply questioning, silently asking the one thing Olivia couldn't answer. Why? Her heart pounded painfully, the weight of the moment crashing over her like a tidal wave. She had loved Ethan. She had cared for him. She had made promises to him, to be his protector, to give him a family. Yet here she was, caught in the web of a truth she had never known existed. Ethan's voice broke through the deafening silence, low and steady, though each word felt like a dagger to Olivia's heart. "Can you explain, Olivia?" The question reverberated in her mind, the force of it making her head spin. She opened her mouth again, trying to speak, but no words came. What could she say? How could she explain something she didn't even understand herself? Why would Ethan's birth mother have written such a chilling warning? What had she done to deserve this? Could it be possible that there was a dark truth hidden deep beneath the surface, one that even Olivia hadn't realized? Her mind raced, trying to piece together every memory, every moment spent with Ethan. Had she missed something? Had there been a moment where she had unknowingly betrayed him? Or was this something far deeper, something far more sinister? The room felt like it was closing in on her, the walls pressing down, suffocating her. Every eye in the room was on her, every whisper, every glance, each one a silent judgment. Olivia couldn't escape. She couldn't run from the truth, no matter how terrifying it was. The letter, the truth it contained, had shattered everything she had believed, and now she had no choice but to confront it. Whispers spread through the courtroom like a raging tide. Some turned to each other, murmuring in shock, while others stared at Olivia with skeptical eyes. From a devoted adoptive mother, she had suddenly become the center of suspicion. Olivia could feel every gaze piercing through her, doubt, judgment, and even weariness. Even the lawyer beside her subtly furrowed his brows, tilting his head as if trying to analyze whether something had been hidden all along. Olivia took a deep breath, desperately trying to maintain her composure. She couldn't let the situation pull her under. This was a mistake, a misunderstanding. She looked at Ethan, hoping he would stop, that he would realize this was all a misconception. But no, his gaze remained unwavering. his voice growing more forceful, more chilling than ever. I know you're connected to my mother's death. A wave of shock rippled through the room, stronger than before. Some people couldn't contain themselves and gasped aloud. The judge slammed the gavel down, attempting to restore order, but the tension was irreversible. Olivia felt as though she had just been struck in the chest, her breath coming in short, frantic gasps. She looked directly at Ethan, desperately searching for any sign that he was playing a prank, that this was just an outburst driven by anger. But no, in his eyes, there was no ordinary anger. There was something far worse, certainty. Olivia shook her head, her voice rasping as she finally managed to speak. Ethan, what are you talking about? Your mother died in an accident. An accident, do you understand? Ethan clenched his fists, his teeth gritted. That's what I used to believe. But no, it wasn't just an accident. I've uncovered the truth, and I know you were there the night my mother died. The room seemed to freeze. Olivia felt the ground beneath her tremble, as though everything she had once known was crumbling away. What was Ethan saying? The boy she had raised for 14 years, the one she had loved more than anything in the world, was now looking at her as if she were someone who needed to be exposed. Why? Why did he believe she was connected to his mother's death? Olivia wanted to speak, to deny it all, but the words were stuck in her throat. Had she been there the night Ethan's mother died? No, that couldn't be. Or could it? Was there something she had forgotten, a buried memory? The questions flooded her mind, but no answers came. And in that moment, she realized this was no longer an adoption hearing. This had turned into a trial of her very own. Memories from that fateful night came rushing back to Ethan like a storm, pulling him back to the moment that changed his life forever. He was just 6 years old, trembling in his mother's arms, his breath coming in ragged gasps, each cold gust of wind biting into his skin. The steady rain fell on the empty street. The streetlights cast long, flickering shadows of the two of them on the wet pavement. Ethan didn't understand what was happening. He only knew that his mother was scared. Her hand gripped him tightly, pulling him along faster, as if she was trying to escape from something invisible that he couldn't see. "Mom, where are we going?" His small voice trembled in the dark. The woman ahead bent down slightly, her eyes filled with worry, yet she forced a strained smile, trying to comfort him. "It's okay, sweetie. We're just going somewhere safe." But her voice quivered. There was no certainty in her words. Suddenly, a deafening sound shattered the air, the screech of tires on asphalt, the roar of an engine, then the glaring headlights of a vehicle speeding toward them, its beams cutting through the night. Ethan's eyes widened, his small heart pounding erratically in his chest. His mother spun around, her eyes wide with terror, and in that moment, time seemed to stop. Everything happened too fast. A car barreled toward them at an insane speed, showing no sign of slowing down. His mother shoved Ethan toward the sidewalk, the force of her push making him fall onto the cold, hard road. He struggled to get up, but in that instant, crash! The horrific sound echoed. Ethan screamed in terror. Before his eyes, his mother was flung into the air, her body spinning before crashing onto the pavement with a sickening thud. Blood quickly spread, staining the cold rain. Her eyes remained wide open, as though she were trying to see him one last time. He didn't remember much of what happened afterward. All that remained were the blaring sirens, flashing lights, and strange hands pulling him away. He cried out for his mother, but she never answered. He remembered someone holding him close, whispering things he couldn't quite hear. But there was one image that haunted him throughout the years, a figure standing on the other side of the street, half of their face hidden in the shadows, seemingly watching everything. A strange feeling crept into his young mind, but when he blinked, the figure was gone. Years later, Ethan still wondered, who was that person? Just a random witness, or someone connected to his mother's death? And now, as he looked at Olivia, those memories were no longer distant nightmares. He had uncovered the evidence, piecing together the fragmented details, and the truth was slowly becoming clearer. The woman who had raised him for 14 years had been there the night his mother died. Ethan's fists tightened until his knuckles turned white, his pulse quickening with every passing second as the pieces of the puzzle slowly but surely came together. Each fragment of memory, each clue that had eluded him for 14 years, was beginning to form a terrifying picture, one he had never in his worst nightmares imagined. What he had uncovered couldn't simply be explained away as coincidence. Too many things didn't add up. Too many questions had been left unanswered. But now, Ethan had the first real pieces of the puzzle, pieces that could unravel everything. Olivia had encountered his mother just before the accident occurred. This was confirmed by a witness, a homeless man who had lived near the scene of the accident, someone who had been overlooked by the police during the initial investigation. He remembered the night clearly, the rain pouring down, the lights flickering, and a woman with dark hair and anxious eyes arguing with Ethan's mother beneath the street lamp. He even remembered her tone, a voice that was full of anger yet laced with a sense of urgency. When Ethan showed him a photo of Olivia, it took the man barely a second to recognize her. It was her. For a moment, Ethan had tried to convince himself it was just a coincidence, a fleeting meeting that meant nothing. But then he stumbled upon something even more unsettling. There had been a phone call, a call made from Olivia's number just minutes before the accident happened. Ethan had dug into the records quietly, his own investigation, and there it was, the time stamped perfectly with the moment his mother had been killed. The contents of the call weren't saved, but the timing couldn't have been a coincidence. Who had Olivia been talking to at that exact moment? And more importantly, what had they been discussing? But the question that truly made Ethan's blood run cold was the one that kept gnawing at him. Why did Olivia adopt him so soon after his mother's death? A stranger with no blood ties, no obligation, no reason at all to take responsibility for a grieving child. Why had she so suddenly taken him in after he lost everything? At first, the police had considered it a kind-hearted gesture, a selfless act of compassion from a stranger who simply wanted to help. But now, as Ethan began to put everything together, doubts crept in. Was this not a simple act of kindness, but a calculated move to cover up something far darker? He could have understood it if Olivia had felt pity for him, if she had simply wanted to help him heal from his trauma. But could a complete stranger, someone with no connection to him, really have made such a decision so quickly, just after he had lost his only family? Or was it possible that Olivia had planned this all along? Ethan felt a chill run down his spine. The pieces of the puzzle were too horrifying. If everything he had discovered was true, it meant that for 14 years, he had been living under the roof of someone who might have been directly connected to the death of his mother. Someone he had trusted completely, someone he had loved, someone he had considered family. Yet now, those very layers of trust, those protective walls, were crumbling away, revealing a terrifying truth that he had never even dreamed of. With every passing second, the gravity of the situation weighed heavier on Ethan's shoulders. He had been raised by this woman. He had lived with her, loved her, and shared his life with her, never once questioning her role in his life. But now, with the facts slowly coming into focus, Ethan realized that everything was far darker than he had ever imagined. Tightly gripping his hands, Ethan took a deep breath, forcing himself to look at Olivia. She had always been the constant in his life, but now his trust, his affection, everything he had believed in, was slipping away. This time, he wouldn't walk away from this without answers. No matter what it took, he would confront the truth, no matter how painful or shocking it might be. He needed to understand what had happened on that fateful night, and this time, he wasn't going to let her get away with silence. The truth was within reach, he could feel it, and he would stop at nothing to uncover it. The courtroom was charged with an oppressive, suffocating tension. Every pair of eyes in the room was fixated on Olivia, the woman who just moments ago had been seen as the compassionate, loving mother, now reduced to the center of suspicion and accusation. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity, thick with anticipation. You could almost hear the rapid, shallow breaths Olivia was struggling to take as she fought to maintain her composure. The judge's voice cut through the silence, sharp and commanding. "Miss Olivia, in light of Ethan's explosive accusations, do you have anything to say for yourself?" Olivia's body went cold. Her hand clutched the armrest so tightly that her knuckles turned white, but there was nothing solid to hold on to, no anchor to steady her. Each of Ethan's words felt like daggers, tearing into her soul, leaving her disoriented, vulnerable. She knew that if she showed even a hint of hesitation now, if she faltered for a split second, the entire courtroom would turn against her. She had to hold it together, no matter what. With great effort, Olivia took a deep breath, trying to steady her voice. "I did not kill his mother," she said, her words trembling but defiant. She paused, her eyes burning with a mix of pain and desperation, but she pushed through. I tried to save her. The moment the words left her lips, the courtroom erupted in chaos. Whispers swirled like a storm. Some people were incredulous. Others exchanged dubious glances, questioning whether Olivia's defense had any truth to it. Ethan, however, was stone cold, his eyes glinting with something darker. He leaned forward, his body radiating barely contained fury. His voice dropped to a chilling, mocking tone as he spoke. You tried to save her? His words dripped with contempt. How? By standing there letting her die right after a heated argument with you. Olivia's heart skipped a beat. She wasn't prepared for the level of hatred Ethan was unleashing. She hadn't seen him this enraged, this furious, ever before in all their years together. His rage was like fire, burning through the air between them. That's not how it happened. Olivia's voice cracked, her earlier calm completely shattered. She could feel herself starting to unravel. I was there. Yes, I was there. But I didn't hurt her. You were there. Ethan cut her off, his voice rising, filled with venom. And now you admit it. You were there, and you're still lying to my face. The room exploded in a cacophony of gasps and mutterings. The walls seemed to close in on Olivia as everyone's gaze turned sharper, more accusatory. Some people looked at her as if they were staring at a monster, unmasked and exposed. The weight of their stares bore down on her with crushing force. Olivia's eyes flicked to the judge, but the man was a stone statue, silent, impassive. He didn't speak, didn't offer any hint of support. He just watched her, waiting for an answer, waiting for her to explain herself, to redeem whatever shred of credibility she had left. Olivia felt herself losing control. She could feel the ground slipping from under her feet, the world spinning around her. If she didn't find a way to convince them now, if she couldn't prove that she was telling the truth, her entire life, her freedom, would be destroyed right here in front of everyone. But how could she possibly defend herself when the truth, the one thing she had been clinging to, felt like it was slipping away? How could she explain what had happened that night when the memories were clouded, twisted, and broken? What had really happened that night? Was it possible that Ethan's accusations were true? Had she been involved in something far darker than she ever could have imagined? The room was deafening, the questions swirling around her like vultures waiting to pounce. But as Olivia looked at Ethan, his fury and disbelief all too evident in his eyes, one chilling realization froze her in place. She wasn't just fighting for her innocence, she was fighting for her very life. The courtroom was suffocating in a heavy silence as Ethan slowly opened his briefcase and pulled out a worn, leather-bound notebook. Its cover was frayed with age, the edges worn down by the passage of time. He placed it carefully on the table in front of the judge, his movements deliberate but carrying a weight that hung thick in the air. Olivia held her breath. A wave of unease washed over her like a tightening noose, squeezing the life out of her. She didn't know what Ethan was doing, but just seeing that notebook sent a chill down her spine. It was as if something from the past, a shadow long buried, was about to be dragged into the light. Ethan flipped through the pages carefully, as if handling a precious relic, a piece of his mother's soul still preserved in ink. He stopped at a page, his eyes darkening as they scanned the faded words. His voice was low, barely a whisper, but each word struck like a hammer against the stillness of the room. "This is my mother's journal," he said, his gaze never leaving the page. She wrote everything down. Olivia's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to protest, but no sound would come. It was as if her voice had been stolen from her, trapped behind an invisible wall. Ethan took a deep breath, then read aloud 2 short lines, lines so simple, yet so damning that they shook the room to its core. Olivia threatened me. If I didn't disappear, she would do something horrible. She wanted to take Ethan away from me. The courtroom erupted. Gasps, whispers, and wide-eyed stares exploded all around Olivia like 1,000 daggers stabbing into her. People leaned forward to get a better look at the notebook, while others exchanged looks of shock and judgment. Even the judge could not mask his surprise. His brow furrowed, and he turned his gaze onto Olivia, scrutinizing her every move. Olivia was reeling. Her mind spun wildly, and the world around her seemed to tilt. The murmurs, the eyes, the words, They all blurred together as if she were drowning in a sea of suspicion. These accusations, they couldn't be true. There had to be a mistake. She had never written those lines. She had never threatened Ethan's mother. But the tattered notebook lay there, an irrefutable piece of evidence, staring her in the face. Ethan's eyes locked onto hers, filled with both pain and determination. "You still say you're not involved in my mother's death?" he asked, his voice low, but enough to make the room feel even more suffocating. "Then explain this. Why would my mother write these words? Why was she so afraid of you that she felt the need to warn me?" Olivia's head swam. She shook her head, her lips trembling, but no words came out. She couldn't remember, or perhaps there was something she had accidentally forgotten, a truth buried so deep in her past that even she hadn't realized it. The eyes continued to bore into her, their judgment relentless. The pressure in the courtroom mounted with each passing second, the white walls closing in, suffocating her. Olivia felt as though she were being judged not by the law, but by the very memories of a woman long gone, memories she could neither control, nor deny, nor escape. Olivia felt everything around her spinning. Her head was dizzy, her heart pounding so violently she could hear the blood rushing in her ears. She tried to speak, but her throat felt constricted, refusing to allow even the smallest sound of defense to escape. The words from Ethan's mother's journal danced before her eyes, flashing across her mind like daggers stabbing deep into the very fragments of memory she had tried to bury, yet couldn't fully recall. Had she really threatened Ethan's mother? Had she truly intended to take Ethan away from her? No, it couldn't be. Olivia knew in her heart that she had never meant that. But then, why did this journal exist? Why did Ethan's mother write such terrified words? Her eyes swept across the courtroom. The skeptical gazes from earlier had shifted into open judgment. The judge's stare was piercing, waiting for her to explain herself. Even her own lawyers seemed to hesitate, a subtle flicker of doubt crossing his face, as if he was starting to question his own client. Ethan stood with his arms crossed, his expression as cold and hard as stone. No trace of the vulnerable boy she had once known was left, only a man hardened by anger and suspicion. He had waited for this moment. "Say something, Olivia," he commanded, his voice no longer shaking but firm and authoritative. "Did you really threaten my mother?" Olivia's mouth opened, but no words came. For a brief moment, she questioned everything. Was there a blank spot in her memory? Was there something she had done but could not recall? A moment of explosive anger, a careless word? Or was it something darker, something more sinister? But then another thought crept into her mind, making her blood run cold. What if this is a trap? What if someone wanted to destroy her, wanted to make her guilty in Ethan's eyes? Was this journal really from his mother? Were these words truly written by a woman terrified of Olivia? Or had they been carefully planted to lead Ethan to this exact conclusion? But if so, who was behind this and why? Olivia swallowed hard, trying to regain her voice. She paused, meeting Ethan's gaze head-on, her words trembling but resolute. "I didn't do anything. I never threatened your mother." Ethan scoffed, but the sound was devoid of any humor. "You expect me to believe you?" He pushed the journal forward, the weight of the words pressing down on her like a crushing stone. "The evidence is right here. If my mother wasn't afraid of you, why would she have written these words?" Olivia bit her lip, her nails digging into the palms of her hands. She knew that no matter what she said right now, convincing Ethan would not be easy. But she also knew that something was terribly wrong. Something was off about all of this. Something was being manipulated, twisted, and she could feel it deep in her gut. Was she really guilty, or was she being pushed into a trap set long ago? She had to find the truth. But the biggest question that remained was, would Ethan even be willing to listen to her anymore? The courtroom was in chaos. The accusations, the skeptical stares, and the journal with its haunting words had thrown Ethan's mind into turmoil. But he knew he needed more than this. He needed evidence, a living witness to confirm that Olivia was truly present at the scene that fateful night. After days of searching, he had finally found an important lead, a homeless man, someone who had witnessed his mother's accident firsthand. He met the man in a dark alley near the city's downtown. The man had been living on the streets for years, unnoticed, his existence ignored by society. But when Ethan mentioned the accident from 14 years ago, the old man's eyes suddenly widened, as if a long-forgotten memory had been violently awakened. You're talking about the accident that rainy night, right? His voice was raspy, worn from years of hardship, but still sharp with clarity. Ethan nodded, his heart racing. Yes, I need to know what you saw. The man looked around nervously, as if afraid someone might be listening. He then leaned in closer, lowering his voice to a whisper, but each word he spoke cut through the air like a knife. I saw your mother arguing with someone right before the accident happened. Ethan held his breath. Who was it? The man shook his head, his eyes glued to the ground, as if he couldn't bear to face the memories he was about to reveal. I didn't see their face, but I remember the voice. A woman's voice. She was furious. And your mother? She was frantic. I couldn't hear all of their conversation, but it was clear your mother was begging for something. Ethan felt a cold chill run down his spine. What happened next? The man swallowed hard. She ran off, ran so fast. It was like she was trying to escape from something. And then, he took a deep breath, his hand trembling as he continued. The car came rushing toward her. It all happened so fast. I only saw her fall, blood everywhere. And then that person, whoever it was, vanished into the darkness. Ethan's heart clenched. The person disappeared. He recalled the vague image in his own memory, a shadowy figure standing on the other side of the street, silently watching, then vanishing just after the accident. Are you sure? His voice trembled with anxiety. The man nodded grimly, his cloudy eyes reflecting the trauma of the memory. I'll never forget that night, kid. It was one of the scariest things I've ever seen. Ethan clenched his fists. He had just uncovered a vital piece of the puzzle, a witness confirming that his mother had argued with someone right before she was killed, and that person had a woman's voice. Could it have been Olivia? But if that were the case, what had she said to his mother? What had she threatened? And why had his mother run in panic instead of standing up for herself? Questions swirled in Ethan's mind, gnawing at him, pressing him closer to a truth he wasn't sure he was ready to confront. He knew he had stumbled upon something long buried, a truth that could change everything. But the real question was he truly ready to face it? Ethan couldn't sleep that night. The words of the homeless man kept echoing in his mind. His mother had argued with someone right before the accident, then panicked and ran away. He knew he needed more than just a witness. He needed proof, something irrefutable, something that couldn't be bent by words or faulty memories. And the only way to do that was to find the surveillance footage from the area near the accident. For days, Ethan followed every lead, going to old buildings near the site where his mother had died, asking about surveillance cameras. Most of the data had been erased due to the time that had passed, but he refused to give up. After countless phone calls and rejections, he finally stumbled upon an old, run-down garage with a camera that had still been working on the night of the accident. The shopkeeper, an elderly man, was initially skeptical when Ethan mentioned footage from 14 years ago, but when he explained that this was part of an investigation into his mother's death, the man fell silent, then agreed to help. The data was old, grainy, and blurry from years of wear, but it was enough for Ethan to see something that made his heart stop. Olivia had been there. He stared at the screen, his breathing quickening. Olivia, the woman he had trusted for so many years, had been standing at the scene of the accident the night his mother died. No more doubts, no more speculations. She had really been there. Ethan clenched his fists, his eyes glued to the images on the screen. He saw his mother's figure running in panic, and then another figure standing nearby, a woman with dark hair wearing a long coat. The face was unclear due to the poor quality of the camera, but there was a brief moment when she looked up, the streetlight reflecting off her face, and it was Olivia. Why had she never mentioned this? Why had she hidden the fact that she had been there? But that wasn't all. Another detail made Ethan's heart race. Before the accident occurred, Olivia had received a call. The call data couldn't be fully recovered, but from what Ethan could find, there was a call lasting over 2 minutes, exactly at the time when his mother had been arguing with someone. 2 minutes before his mother died. He stared at the computer screen, his mind reeling with conflicting thoughts. Who had called Olivia at that crucial moment? And more importantly, what had they talked about? A wave of fury surged within Ethan. He knew he couldn't sit still any longer. It was time for Olivia to face the truth. What was her connection to his mother's death? And what had really happened on that fateful night? Ethan stood at the door, a storm of emotions churning inside him. The stack of papers in his hands trembled slightly, his grip tight, as if the very weight of the evidence was pushing him forward. For so many years, he had trusted Olivia, believed in her love for him, in her protection. But now, everything felt like a lie. Every moment he had spent with her, the laughter, the warmth, the security, was starting to crumble, and all he was left with was an unbearable need for the truth. He couldn't wait anymore. He couldn't stand the torment of wondering any longer. He had to know. He had to have the truth. Olivia, sitting quietly in her chair, looked up at him as he entered. The exhaustion in her eyes was clear, but there was something else too, a look of recognition, as if she had already known this moment was inevitable. When Ethan met her gaze, she saw it. The boy she had raised was gone. In his place stood a man demanding answers, a man who had been broken by the lies that had surrounded him for years. The boy she had loved, the boy she had protected, was now a man confronting her with questions she couldn't answer, with truths she had tried to hide. Ethan stood before her, his breath heavy and deliberate, as though each word he spoke was a strike to the very core of their relationship. "Did you kill my mother?" The question was like a slap, ringing through the room, shattering the fragile veneer of normalcy that had once existed between them. Olivia froze. Her hands gripped the hem of her shirt, trying to steady herself, but the words had already broken through her defenses. Had she really done it? Had she really been involved in her death? Tears welled in her eyes as she looked up at him. Her voice trembled as she answered, but it wasn't the answer he was hoping for. "No, I didn't kill her, Ethan. I swear I didn't." But the damage was done. The way Ethan looked at her, the coldness in his eyes, it was as if he had already made up his mind. Her heart shattered, seeing the betrayal in his eyes. All the years she had tried to protect him, tried to shield him from the truth, but now that truth was like a tide, and no matter how hard she tried to hold it back, it was crashing over her. Ethan slammed the stack of papers onto the table, the sound deafening in the stillness of the room. "Then why was she so terrified of you? Why did you speak to her that night? Why did she run from you? Olivia, why, when I was just a child, did you take me in so suddenly, without any explanation?" His voice broke, raw with pain, desperation. "Tell me, Olivia, what did you do to her? What did you say to her?" Olivia's chest tightened. She could feel her breath growing shallow, the weight of the past pressing down on her. It was as if the years of guilt, the years of pretending, were crashing down all at once. She had tried so hard to bury it, to keep the past locked away where no one could see it. But now, in the face of Ethan's pain, she knew there was no way to run from the truth anymore. Tears streamed down her face as she looked at him. I wasn't trying to hurt her, Ethan. I never wanted to hurt her. She was scared. She was afraid of something she couldn't escape from. But you have to understand, there's something you don't know, something you can't know." Ethan's voice was like ice, his eyes piercing through her as he demanded an answer. What? What was she afraid of, Olivia? What secret could she have known that would make her run for her life? And why didn't you stop her? Why didn't you try to help her? Olivia collapsed into her chair, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The weight of the truth hung in the air like a dark cloud, threatening to suffocate her. She had never wanted Ethan to know, never wanted him to hear the truth. But now, with him standing there, asking for answers, she realized that keeping it from him had only caused more pain. "Your mother. She was going to leave, Ethan. She wanted to take you away, to disappear. She was scared, terrified of something that no one should ever have to face. But she couldn't tell anyone, not even me. She couldn't beat it. And that's why she had to go. Because she knew something that no one could ever know. And that's what killed her." Ethan's heart skipped a beat. "What do you mean? What did she know?" His voice cracked, a mix of fear and disbelief. Olivia took a deep breath, closing her eyes as the memories flooded back. Memories she had tried so hard to forget. She had seen it in her own eyes, felt the weight of it in her soul. The thing she had never wanted to speak of, the thing she had buried for so long, was now slipping from her lips. She found out something about the people who were behind everything, about the danger you were in, Ethan. Your mother didn't just leave because she was afraid for herself. She was trying to protect you. She was trying to keep you safe from a world she couldn't protect you from anymore. She knew she had to disappear, and she knew that if she stayed, if she didn't leave, you would be in danger." Ethan stood motionless, his mind reeling, trying to piece together the fragments of his mother's life, the secret she had kept from him for so long. But why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ever tell me the truth? Olivia looked at him, the pain of all those years of silence in her eyes. I was trying to protect you, Ethan. I thought if I kept you close, kept you safe, you wouldn't have to live with the same fear she had. I thought I could keep the darkness away from you. Ethan's chest ached. The weight of the words, of the years that had been stolen from him, hit him like a tidal wave. His mother had been trying to protect him, but the secret she had carried, it had cost her life. He looked at Olivia, his heart torn between the love he once had for her and the overwhelming pain of the truth. I don't know if I can forgive you, Olivia, but I need to know everything. What did she know? Who was she running from? What was she trying to protect me from? Olivia's eyes were full of sorrow. The truth is buried deeper than you realize, Ethan. And sometimes, some things are better left buried. But Ethan wasn't sure he could ever rest until he knew it all, until he understood the full cost of the secrets that had been kept from him. The truth was a painful, terrifying thing, but it was the only way forward. In that moment, Olivia realized the true cost of the past. The secrets, the lies, they had shaped Ethan into the man standing before her now, demanding answers she wasn't sure she was ready to give. But deep inside, she knew he had to hear the truth, even if it meant tearing apart everything they had built together, because only then could they both begin to heal. Olivia slowly lifted her head, her eyes filled with pain and exhaustion. She knew there was no way to run anymore. The truth, a truth that had been buried for 14 years, had to be spoken now. She took a deep breath, her hand instinctively clutching the armrest of her chair. Ethan. Her voice was thick with emotion, but she continued. Your mother and I, we both love the same man. The room fell into a deathly silence. Ethan stood frozen, his eyes wide, unable to process what he had just heard. What did you say? Olivia stared at him, as though trying to imprint every expression on his face into her memory. Your father, the man you never knew. He meant everything to your mother. But before he was with her, he was mine. The words hit like an explosion in the already tense room. Ethan took a step back, trying to piece together the chaotic thoughts in his mind. You're saying, my father once loved you. Olivia nodded, her eyes filled with bitterness. He and I had a deep relationship. But then your mother came into the picture, and everything changed. I lost him. I lost everything. Ethan felt his chest tighten, each breath harder to take. So you hated my mother? You wanted to hurt her because you lost my father? Olivia immediately shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. No, never. I never wanted to hurt her, Ethan. I was hurt, but I am not a murderer. Then what happened that night? Ethan demanded, his voice full of fury. He couldn't accept half-truths, not anymore. Olivia clenched her fists, struggling to keep her emotions in check. I met your mother that night. She came to find me. She said she wanted to leave the city, wanted to take you with her. But she knew something about your father, something too dangerous. And she was terrified. Ethan's eyes narrowed, his mind whirling with a dozen theories. What did my mother know? Olivia shook her head, her voice weak. I don't know. She wouldn't tell me. But she was frantic, pleading for me to help her escape. But I didn't agree. I was angry. We argued so fiercely. And then she ran. Ethan's voice quivered as pieces of his memories started to fall into place. Olivia nodded, tears streaming down her face. I never thought it would be the last time I saw her. The room was still. Ethan stood motionless, his mind a storm of confusion. He wanted to believe her. He needed to believe her. But doubt lingered in the air like a poison. Was Olivia truly innocent? Or was this a story crafted to cover up a more horrific truth? Something was still missing, one final piece of the puzzle, and Ethan knew he had to find it. Where did the real truth lie? And what secret had his mother known? Did it have something to do with her death? The questions consumed him, gnawing at his soul, dragging him deeper into the mystery. He had learned so much, but the pain was unbearable. His mother's death, the secrets, Olivia's confession. It was all too much. But he couldn't stop now. He couldn't let this lie unanswered. There was a darkness, a truth hidden for far too long, and Ethan would stop at nothing until he had the answers. Answers that might shatter everything he thought he knew. Ethan left the room, his breath heavy, as though he had just been thrown into a maze with no way out. Everything Olivia had said seemed to make sense, but something still felt off. It was like looking at a painting with one missing piece. The truth was almost within reach, but it remained hidden in the shadows. He knew he needed something clearer, something more concrete. The only thing that could validate that night was the call data. If Olivia had received a call just before the accident, then the person who called her could be the key. He returned to the call records he had discovered earlier. An anonymous number, no name saved, but it appeared exactly 2 minutes before his mother died. Ethan's heart raced as he tried to trace the call. He had asked a friend who worked in tech to help with the tracking. The telecom system didn't typically store anonymous numbers in regular records, but there was a way to pull the data from old server logs. The process took several days, but when the final results appeared on the screen, Ethan nearly gasped. That call was not to Olivia. It was from someone else. Ethan stared at the decoded phone number, his eyes widening as a name appeared on the screen. The name that had never crossed his mind but was now tightly bound to his life in a way he couldn't have ever imagined. The call that came near Olivia the night his mother died was from his biological father. A cold shiver ran down Ethan's spine. For years, he had never known who his father was. His mother had never spoken of him, never revealed anything about him. And now, he was discovering that this man was connected to his mother's death. He stared at the phone screen, overwhelmed with questions. Why would his father contact someone near Olivia that night? What had they discussed? And most importantly, what had he done to make his mother run away in panic? Ethan gripped the phone, his whole body frozen. He had believed Olivia was at the center of it all, but maybe he had been wrong. If his father was truly behind it all, then what he had just uncovered was only the surface of a much darker secret. To learn the truth, he had to find him. Ethan's heart pounded in his chest as he stared at the phone screen, the name Marcus Thorne flashing before him like a beacon in the darkness. The air felt thick, as if the very room was pressing in on him. This name, this man, was the missing piece of the puzzle that had haunted him for years. For all his life, Ethan had known nothing about his biological father. His mother had never spoken a word about him, leaving Ethan with only questions and a deep sense of abandonment. But now, the name Marcus Thorne was haunting him, and everything he had believed about his mother's death was crumbling before him. The message that had appeared linked to the call data was chilling. You know too much. If you don't keep quiet, I won't let you go anywhere. Ethan's breath hitched. The words, simple yet terrifying, felt like a knife being twisted into his gut. The man who had once been a ghost, a shadow in his life, now had a name, and that name was tied to his mother's death. Ethan couldn't reconcile what he was seeing with the life he thought he had known. All these years, he had accepted his mother's death as an accident, had come to terms with the idea that she was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. But now, he realized that it had never been that simple. His mother had known something dangerous, something that had cost her life. What could it have been? What had she learned that had put her in the crosshairs of someone so powerful that they had been willing to silence her forever? His pulse raced as he tried to piece together the fragments of his mother's life. The more he dug into Marcus Thorne, the more disturbing the story became. The man had disappeared from public records over a decade ago. There were no traces of him in any legitimate business dealings, no address, no footprint. Everything about him was deliberately obscured, like a ghost who had been erased from existence. But Ethan wasn't about to give up. He found clues, broken, fractured pieces of information that painted a much darker picture. Hidden accounts, shadowy business dealings, links to powerful people whose names he couldn't even pronounce. Marcus Thorne was far from a simple businessman. He was a ghost with ties to the underworld, a man who knew how to make people disappear without a trace. The discovery hit Ethan like a ton of bricks. If Marcus Thorne was really involved in his mother's death, then everything Ethan had believed, everything he had built his life on, was a lie. The life his mother had lived, the secrets she had carried, were now coming back to haunt him, and he could feel the weight of them pressing down on his chest. He had to find Marcus. He had to know what happened that night. What had his mother discovered? What was she running from? What had she been so terrified of that she had to flee in the dead of night? But Marcus Thorne had been careful, too careful. The more Ethan tried to trace him, the more the trail grew cold. But Ethan wasn't about to stop. He couldn't. He was so close now, so close to uncovering the truth. In a desperate attempt to find more, Ethan turned to his last hope, Olivia. She was the only person who might know where Marcus was hiding. the only one who might be able to shed light on the things Ethan still didn't understand. He remembered how she had trembled when she mentioned his mother's secret, how she had whispered about a hidden truth that had driven his mother to run away in fear. Olivia knew something. Ethan was certain of it. The next day, Ethan stood in front of Olivia's house, his heart thudding in his chest, the urgency mounting with every passing second. He had to know the truth. He had to know what his mother had learned and why Marcus Thorne was so determined to keep it hidden. He knocked on the door, his hands clammy, his mind racing. Olivia opened the door, her face pale, her eyes wide with surprise. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "What are you doing here?" Ethan stepped forward, his voice steady but full of a determination he hadn't felt before. "I know the truth, Olivia. I know about Marcus Thorne. I need you to tell me everything you know about him. I need to know what happened to my mother." Olivia's face drained of color. She stepped back, her body trembling. "Ethan, you don't know what you're asking. You have no idea what you're about to uncover." Ethan stared at her, his anger rising. "I don't care what it is, Olivia. I need to know. I've been searching for so long. I need the truth." Tears welled up in Olivia's eyes as she looked at him. "It's not just about your mother's death, Ethan," she said quietly. "It's about everything. Your father. He's not just some businessman. He's a man with power, power you can't even imagine. And the truth. It's dangerous. If you keep digging, you're going to risk everything. Your life, Ethan." Ethan's heart raced, but he was resolute. "I don't care. I'm ready to face whatever it is. But I can't live with this uncertainty. I can't live with these lies anymore." Olivia took a deep breath, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Your mother found something out, something about your father, something that no one was supposed to know. And that knowledge, that was why she had to run. She was going to leave, to disappear with you. But then Marcus found out. He couldn't let her go. And that's when everything started to spiral out of control." Ethan stood there, his mind reeling. His mother hadn't just died by accident. She had been murdered because of a secret that had been buried for years. The pieces were finally coming together, but there was still so much left unanswered. "What did she find out, Olivia? What was it?" Ethan's voice was barely a whisper now. Olivia shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I don't know, Ethan. I don't know. But I do know one thing. If you keep pushing, if you keep digging, you'll uncover things that will change everything. And once you know, there's no going back." Ethan stood still for a moment, the weight of her words sinking in. He knew she was right. The truth was darker than he had ever imagined. But he couldn't stop. He wouldn't stop. The truth was out there, and he was going to find it, no matter the cost. Ethan gripped the phone tightly, feeling as if his blood was running cold. Every beat of his heart hammered in his chest. The name Marcus Thorne reverberated in his mind, no longer just a faceless name, but the key to all the tragedies in his life. His pulse raced, each beat louder than the last, like his body was warning him of something yet to come. But no matter the fear creeping in, he couldn't stop now. He had come too far to turn back, and the answers he so desperately needed were within his reach. If Marcus really was behind it all, if he had threatened his mother, then what awaited him now? The silence in the room felt suffocating, the only light coming from the faint glow of the phone screen, casting shadows on Ethan's tense face. A cold shiver ran down his spine. Was he stepping into danger? Was digging into the past a mistake? But just as that thought crossed his mind, the sharp ring of a phone broke the heavy silence, jolting him out of his reverie. Ethan jumped, his heart in his throat, as he saw an unknown number flash on the screen. His hand became slick with sweat, but there was no hesitation. He took a deep breath and answered the call. On the other end, there was only silence at first, a static hum, as if someone were listening but not speaking. Ethan squinted, the waiting silence pressing down on him, suffocating him. Then the voice came, a low, cold tone devoid of emotion. "You've gone too far, Ethan." His body froze, a chill spreading across his skin. He gripped the phone tighter, his voice forced to remain calm despite the shock. "Who is this?" There was no answer immediately. A long pause followed, heavier than before, like the person on the other end was deciding whether to speak or not. Then the voice returned, slow and deliberate, carrying an ominous edge. "Stop before it's too late." The call abruptly ended. The screen went black, leaving Ethan in the dark, his breath coming in rapid gasps. Who had called him? How did they know he was investigating? And what would happen if he refused to stop? A terrifying realization washed over him. For the first time in his entire search for the truth, Ethan understood that what he was chasing wasn't just the past of his mother. It was a secret someone was willing to go to any length to bury. He sat in the silence, his mind racing with questions. But despite the overwhelming fear, despite the danger lurking just beyond his reach, Ethan knew one thing for certain. He couldn't stop now. The truth lay ahead, and he would have to keep moving forward, no matter what awaited him.